Hey folks, welcome to FiddleHed Fiddle Lessons. We're going to learn more about left hand sliding, and we're going to learn how to add it to melodies and fiddle tunes like Arkansas Traveler. Okay, cool, let's learn how to do it. Before we get started, just want to check in and say that this is the second lesson in a series on sliding the left hand, which I'm doing. If you haven't taken the first lesson, I recommend taking that first. It'll give you the basic approach to learning sliding in a very step-by-step manner. So it lays the foundation for the rest of the lessons. And as I said in that lesson, if you're an absolute beginner, I strongly suggest that you don't try to slide yet. And if you're an intermediate player, you could review low first finger to first, low second to second, third, and low four to fourth. All right? Knowing the chromatic scale will help you a lot too. Put a link to that lesson in the notes below. Okay, so there are two main things I want you to remember, two strategies for adding slides to tunes and melodies. First takeaway is we'll want to start by focusing on a single note. So let's say we're learning O Susanna. And we want to slide that last note, which is D1. We'd start, once you identify that note, you'd want to just practice that slide a little bit on its own. Do the big slow slide as we learned in the first lesson. And then do the quick little slide. And then go back to doing that whole phrase. We could actually do a smaller phrase. So I like to think of like there's a phrase, which is a bigger thing, and then kind of in between a single note and a phrase is just a little bit like this. So let's just take that D2, 2, 1, open, slide to D1 and practice that in a loop. Let's loop together. 3, 4. And then again. And then once you get that down, we'll expand even further and add that slide to the whole phrase. And if at any point it becomes a struggle, just return to practicing the slide on a single note, that one slide note. You may be wondering, how do I decide what note to slide? That's an excellent question. And there's lots of options, way too many options. But what I would recommend for you, if you're new to this, is to slide on longer notes where you have time to get in and then find the tuning of that note, find the right pitch, and then rest. So that's why I chose this long note, which is a half note. All right, it just gives you time to come to a rest, where if the notes are moving too quickly, you might not ever get there if you're sliding. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so to sum up, that's the first main practice strategy. It's kind of what I call micro practice. Find what note you want to slide in a tune, and then just slide that single note, and then kind of work it into the tune, do a little bit, and then a bigger bit, all right? And so the next main strategy is I want you to practice alternating between a basic version and the sliding. And this is a principle for adding variation that I teach all throughout the course, throughout my Irish fiddle variations course as well, which is in order to really integrate any kind of variation, we practice something super simple, and then we add that variation in a very simple way, but we add a variation, and we alternate between those, and ideally in a continuous loop. So we're going to do that right now with the same little bit, okay, just to illustrate. So what I'm suggesting is let's go back to this bit. But now practice it without that slide. 3, and again with it. No slide, and then with a slide. That's the basic idea. Why don't you take a moment and practice it with this play-along track from the lesson page on FiddleHed. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so if you found that useful, I've got a bunch more examples on the FiddleHed lesson page. I might play through a few of them towards the end of the lesson, but I just want to get to the last main points about adding slides to tunes. And you kind of already know it at this point, but basically the main takeaways are focus on single notes slides and then work it into tunes from there. And then the next big point is to alternate between a basic and a variation. And today our variation is sliding. Maybe some other day the variation is double stops or an Irish roll or something like that. So those are the main things, and then they apply also to if you get stuck, if you struggle, kind of a way to bring some peace of mind is to just simplify what you're doing. So let's say you've been trying to add slides somewhere else, like to Arkansas Traveler. And it's just not sounding good. Well, what you could do is kind of take a few steps backward, and backwards is not bad. It's actually really instructive. So we could just practice sliding into A3. Then you could just practice that phrase, which is the fourth quarter of Arkansas Traveler. Maybe even just a few notes. The last strategy, if you get stuck and you're just really frustrated, you've tried hard, and you hit the wall, is to just switch to something else, or even take a break. But what I would suggest is maybe just play an easy tune. Or maybe go to some other thing you're working on. Maybe today is going to be a better day for you to practice vibrato or whatever else you're working on than slides or a new tune. You know, just it's a way to be kind to yourself, you know, and this strategy of switching to different things is called interleaving. It's kind of a learning strategy. Also known as spaced repetition. If you practice something for a little bit, then give it a break, then come back to it again, it's almost more powerful than if you practice it, those two sessions put together. So this is just sort of an overarching thing I'm starting to teach, this interleaving strategy. And I just want to suggest that you do it with sliding as well. So now I'm just going to kind of quickly play through a few other examples. I've got full play-along tracks for all of these, but so I wanted to give an example of a different kind of tune. So an Irish jig that I teach a lot on the course is called Kerfunken Jig. And so we could use the same strategy with the first bar of that. Do a basic version. So I think I want to try to slide that first note, which is D2. So I would first just practice that. Maybe quick little slides. And then try that phrase. That worked out okay. Maybe I'll do it quicker. Now I'll try a big, slow slide. Neither is right. It's a matter of learning what sounds good to you and just continuously experimenting and trying to learn, all right? To not get too settled in a way of doing it. taking it away. So which is going to be our next step. We're going to do that main strategy of alternating between basic and variation. So we'll start with the basic and variation. And then just for the fun of it, try that out on the G string. This is one way to make up your own exercises. All right, cool. So that's pretty much it for the lesson. On the lesson page, I have a bunch more exercises for different tunes. So more exercises for O Susanna, a few for Carrie Polka, for Blackest Crow, Arkansas Traveler, and a few for Kerfunken Jig. And I hope this is fun. Let me know if you try it on other songs besides the ones I teach. Let me know how it goes, what your questions are, what your struggles are with it, and then stay tuned for the next lesson on slides. We're gonna learn a little bit about downward slides, because if you notice, we've only done upward slides. We're gonna do downward slides next time. So stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching. See ya. Go to FiddleHed.com for a progressive, step-by-step course outline, color-coded tabs, play-along tracks, sheet music, and much more. Thanks for watching the video. Excellent! And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.